Welcome back to Passing Time with Craig. As always, I'm your host, Craig, and today I am chatting with Kyle Gould, who's the president of Calgary Alliance of Community Theatre Society. He has a podcast on staging. We're going to talk all about the Calgary community theater scene. What's it like? What do people need to know? How can you get involved, whether you're an actor or not? It was a lot of fun to chat with Kyle, so enjoy my conversation with Kyle Gould. How's your summer going? Let's start off with that.
Oh, well, yeah, thanks. Summer's been great so far for me. Professionally, it's we're into the Stampede week, so there's lots of great stuff happening with work and connecting with clients. And then personally, it's a very, very laid back sort of time for community theater.
Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunities being built as we do have one big production for all of Calgary Community Theater in the summer, and that is the Calgary Acts Community Theater Awards, or the CAT Awards. So that takes up a lot of my personal time, but right now is a great time for disc golf and a great time for some vacations. How about yourself, Craig?
It's been going good so far, yes. The weather has been pretty decent. We've had some hot days, but we've had some nice little rainstorms coming in, which I absolutely love. And everybody who listens to this podcast knows that I love Jurassic Park. So when I get a good Jurassic Park rainstorm, I'm like, yes.
Oh, it's even better because you got a Jurassic Park movie
Yes,
summer
yes,
too.
which is lots of fun. If nobody's seen it yet, go check it out.
I
Uh,
know, right?
it
So good.
it's so good. It's just fun and it gets back to it. And that's something I just I grew up just I don't remember the first time I watched Jurassic and I just loved it. For you, when did acting just was that always there for you? Was that when did you know that
Oh
was going to
God,
happen?
no.
Was it always that or what?
I sampled some performing in high school and never really found my people in the drama department at high school, though I did try my best. Um, but by grade 12, I had abandoned it entirely. And then I dipped my toe in my last year of university at the University of Calgary while I was pursuing an English degree. I auditioned for a show and then wound up in something called the Bald Soprano and didn't really understand it and didn't really connect with people there either. And then flash forward like 10 years ago, 20 years after all of that,
Yeah.
I'm in my mid 30s, and a friend I had been in choir with says to me, "Hey, Kyle, um, why don't you come and audition for the next Gilbert and Sullivan production that's being put on by Morpheus Theater that I'm going to be the musical director for? You've got a really wonderful singing voice. You've got wonderful presence. Why don't you come out and audition for the Pirates of Penzance?" And I told my wife, I'm like, "Well, I've got an offer to audition for a role in Pirates of Penzance." And she goes, "Oh, please do that. It's my favorite musical of all time. My husband in my favorite musical. That would be amazing."
Yeah.
And I said, okay. So I signed up for an audition slot and then I never bothered to go to it because new things, new people.
Hmm.
I wasn't in a place with small children that I felt like I was going to take big risks. But my friend literally that night after the final audition happens calls me and says, "Why didn't you come to your audition?" I'm like, "Oh, I just didn't think that I really wanted." She's like, "Look, I'm not even going to audition you. I'll cast you in the show, in the chorus, in the ensemble. If, no audition needed, you just come out to the read through and you're in the show, go from there." And I said, okay. And my wife literally pointed her finger at my chest and glared at me in the eye and said, "You do this."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, I will." And so I did and fell in love with Gilbert and Sullivan musicals. And for the next decade, I participated in pretty much every single one that Morpheus put on and started doing plays and other shows and other musicals. And in 2017, 3 or 4 years later, after my very first show, so I was still a fledgling person in community theater, I wanted to do more and be connected and help out. And there was a lot of complaining about how, the bureaucracy of Calgary Acts, which is an alliance of community theater companies, was really like problematic and full of deceit. And a bunch of people had taken to Facebook about this. And I said, well, I'm going to go see what that's all about. And I went to a meeting of Calgary Acts, and I left that meeting as the treasurer of the group and was on the board, even though I had no intention. I just wanted to see what was going on and how could I help and be part of this. And
Yeah.
it turns out no one was doing anything and there was no bureaucracy. And it was the very elbow grease and getting their hands dirty work of like 6 or 7 people to make an awards event happen every year and to try to connect 20 to 30 community theater companies in Calgary. That's right, Craig. There's 20 to
Wow.
30 community theater companies in Calgary putting on shows every single year.
Yeah.
This year in Calgary, there was 41 theater productions
Wow.
from community theater companies in Calgary.
That's crazy. That's a lot. And well, that's just it. I mean, I just before COVID was in Simply Theater West California Suite
Oh,
production,
wonderful.
which was super fun. Absolutely loved it. And yeah, there's so many plays. And now you're the president, right, of the Calgary Alliance of Community Theater
I
Society.
am the president. Yes,
Yeah.
that happened in 2019, and then I had served my 5-year term with with the membership. I stepped down, another individual stepped up, and for 2 years I was out of the board, and then I came back because there just wasn't anyone who was willing to step up and be part of things and try to make an alliance happen. And it was at that time as well that I realized that, as much conversation is happening as we can get between the theater companies,
Mhm.
it's not enough. But also, there's no general public knowledge of what's going on, not only at the community theater level, but then also at like the umbrella level of community theater in Calgary. That all this work goes into these shows, and each production is a labor of love, and with a really like capital letters, bold, italicized labor of love. Um, that you could go see a show and you'd leave and you'd say, "Oh, that was nice," as you're walking out, but like it was more than nice. It was a miracle that this
Yeah.
show happened at all in the way that it did. And I said, we need something that'll help give people a kind of a glimpse into what goes on and how hard theater is from people that are doing this for free, right? Like
Yeah.
you're in Plaza Suite, nobody gets paid for that.
Yeah.
Like the costumer goes and finds costumes and maybe has a budget that Simply Theater's been able to put together. The directing team and the production team, they're not getting paid. So all these people are putting this on out of joy and love, and you've paid a $25 or $30 ticket price to go see that. It's a miracle. And I decided I needed a forum for giving people an opportunity to talk.
Yeah.
And so I started on staging a podcast where I sit down with production team people and talk about the hardships that come about with bringing a particular show to stage. And I try to release it before the show goes up so that an audience member could listen to that and get a kind of a glimpse and an understanding. When they see the show, they kind of get that opportunity for catharsis a bit more relevant and a bit more immediate because they realize just how special what they're seeing is.
Yeah. And there's so much work that goes into it, as you mentioned. I mean, not only are these actors, you know, finding time between their actual full-time jobs to learn these lines, come to rehearsals, put on a great show, but then you have the sets and the costumes and the lighting and the sound. You have the director. You have all these behind the scenes stuff, and trying to make sure that it's, okay, well, this is our budget. How can we make it a simple set, but also still make sure you're not going like, well, this is just clearly a person with one lamp and a chair, like, unless it calls for it in that scene. Like, all that work that goes into it. Like, there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes before it hits opening night.
It's true. And then not only that, but there's the marketing side of things too, to tell people that to even come out and see it. So like you can put a whole show together and make a whole show happen, but unless people know about it, then so there's graphic design that has to come into it. There's interviews that you have to request and ask for. There's posters and putting those posters up and all of the components that try to get like even just a regular number of people to come and see the show that are not friends and family of the performers in it and the production team. And that's hard to do. And we're very fortunate that there are some well-established community theater companies in Calgary that have been able to help support and develop other fledgling people who are trying to get into this, not business.
Yeah.
Charitable work, I
Yeah.
think is really what we need to call it to make it happen. And a company like Morpheus Theater, it works well to support junior production companies in helping them with ticketing and helping them find a rehearsal space and helping them find a place to put their show up and do that in an economical way that allows a company that does not have any money, because that's how it all starts, to actually make a show happen.
Yeah, and you mentioned rehearsal space. Like, a lot of times the rehearsal's not happening at the stage where you're going to see it when you as an
No,
audience member. No, they are not getting that into that until maybe a couple days before. So they have to like plan everything ahead of time. And then now we're into this space. So yeah, you need the location ahead of time as well. Um,
exactly.
and there's all these different aspects coming into play.
Like there's only two companies in Calgary and the surrounding area that get to rehearse in the space that they're performing in. And one of them is Incendiary Festival. They're doing a show right now that's playing tonight and tomorrow, and then it closes, called In the Water in Fish Creek Park in Hullswood. It's sold out, but I mean, if you're walking down the path and you happen to stumble upon it, how are they going to stop you?
Yeah.
It's literally in Fish Creek.
Yeah.
So they have gotten to do all of their rehearsing in their space. And then fortunately out in Bragg Creek, there's a theater company called Swamp Donkey Musical Theater. And they are also a wonderful community theater company. They put on 3 big time musicals a year, as well as 2 kids shows a year. And those shows are just as much a big time musical theater show as anything else. So don't let that dissuade you. They put on 5 shows a year, which is way too much work and labor, but
Yeah.
they own their theater space. And so all of their rehearsals are in their theater space. So it does serve them in good stead to have that place popping as much as they can 5 days a week for the entirety of a year, given that it's their space and they need to pay rent.
Yeah. Now talk to me because, I love going out to see plays. They're so much fun. And I know people do think about it. But there's so many different community theaters as companies, as we mentioned, different plays and productions happening. So a lot of people might think it's a perfect date night, but then there's also perfect shows for families to go out to,
Yeah.
or girls' night or guys' night, like whatever it may be. There's all different types of shows. People may not realize it, right? Like there's something for everybody.
Yes. And actually, I honestly think that most plays that are being put on for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a hockey bro and you have seasons tickets to the Flames and you'd rather do that every day of the week and chug a couple of beers. You could see a show like Sweeney Todd and be moved and have catharsis from having borne witness to that than you would anywhere else. There's something about live theater that I think we have kind of lost over the last 20 or 30 years. When TV got high definition, and people started staying in and not going out to the theater to see the movies in the theater, which was another big element for people to do because it was larger than life.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of a couple of anecdotes recently where a couple of performers who were only famous due to being on like The Office or a couple of sitcoms, they make a step to being on the big screen and suddenly people look at them differently because you're larger than life.
Yeah.
Even when you're now seeing the person, Tom Cruise's face is always 10 times bigger than a normal person's face. And that does something to the psyche. Well, in the same way, going to a physical live theatrical performance does something to the psyche as well. Because when you watch something 2-dimensional on the screen, even if they artificially add 3D behind the scenes, watching something on the screen is always going to be, as McLuhan would say, a cold media experience. There's no heat exchange between them. As opposed to going to see a live theatrical experience or going to a sporting event, going to a live theatrical experience, you are watching those people experience those emotions and have those reactions in real time in front of you. Much like you're walking out of a restaurant and you see a fight in the parking lot, watching a theatrical performance that has a fight in it and stage combat on it has that same evoked emotion in you because you have immediacy to the caring of your fellow man and woman. And so by watching that live, you're going to have a more memorable, long-lasting experience than you ever would watching something streaming on TV or even going to see Jurassic Park in the theater.
Yeah. Well, and it's even like just because a performer's whole thing will change based off the crowd and they're experiencing things that you get to only you are seeing that. The only you, that audience, is seeing it at the time, because the next night they're going to be doing something slightly different. I know I've done
Yep.
that before. Even trivia nights, I have different jokes that I use all the time. It's always switching things up. So you get to see something that you wouldn't get to experience. And yeah, like, you know, we've talked about at the beginning, like, oh, how much fun Jurassic World was. But we all saw the same movie. We saw the exact same scenes and footage, everything. Yes, the theater might be slightly different, but you and I could be talking about seeing a performance one night different, and it's completely different. And maybe you get to see somebody do a little, like, almost flub their line, a little laugh, a little break, and you think about those moments on Saturday Night Live and live
Right.
comedy. Like, that's just something you need to experience live.
You're looking for those moments.
Yeah.
When something goes wrong on stage, you want to be there for it. And just even if nothing does go wrong, just the potentiality of it happening gives greater meaning and depth to the performance itself. It's like going to a sports game. I already talked about going to a hockey game. I think sports events are just as important and wonderful, because even though we know the conclusion ahead of time, win, lose, or draw, that's all it could ever be, there's still whole stories and huge emotions that come as a result of just those two teams facing off for one of those three results. And live theater, even though it's scripted and even though it's choreographed and designed and put into place, still has the potentiality for something wild to go occur and something terrible to happen. And to have the opportunity to bear witness to that is dramatic and is empowering to the audience. Also, there's a factor that we've seen Jurassic World and we could go watch it again and it would be the same experience again, even though we've already seen it. It's exactly the same thing and it will never change for us. Going and seeing it another night, going and seeing it another time, especially, means you're going to have an entire other cast and a whole other vision and a whole other director's perspective to it. And because it's all happening in the real moment, you can't pause. You might have been looking over to the left at the leads and didn't catch the secondary characters having a fist fight in the background, which they'd been leading up to the whole entire production. And so with on staging, that was one of the other components I've really tried to hit on was, what do you want audiences to see in this show? What do you want them to really get a chance to focus on that they might miss that you really loved in this production? And what do you want them to take away from it too? Because live theater is a powerful thing. It's a dangerous thing as well, because you're changing people's perspectives. You're giving people an opportunity to think differently about things. And we need to be careful about that as directors and as producers. We need to make sure that we are taking care of the audience, that when we're putting up something like Chicago, we're leading the audience to think particular things about women's empowerment and how to perceive relationships. And what does that mean for an audience to leave having seen it, and how do we want them to feel about that? Because that's what's going to happen. Live theater does that. Sophocles says, there's catharsis in live production theaters. We want people to be changed from having borne witness to the emotions writ large on the stage.
Yeah. And you brought up a point too, that there's kind of, when you think about like a play, I guess you could kind of break it down to just two kinds. There's the original piece that's like brand new. Somebody here in Calgary wrote it, and brand new. No one's ever seen it before. So you're going in going, I don't know what's going to happen here. Always fun little surprise. Or then there's those classics, as you mentioned, Chicago. I mean, all the musicals, so many musicals that we do. I recently had Megan Baldry on to talk about Much Ado About Nothing that just happened here recently. So there's all these ones that we've grown up with and have always known, and you've seen different movies. Maybe you've seen a touring company here do this play, and now you're seeing a whole different aspect of it, and you get to see actors bring something different to it. We talk about reboots and sequel films, and you have somebody now playing this character that is so well known, but how do they make it their own? And that's such a fun thing about live theater is everybody's seen Romeo and Juliet. We've read it in school. We've watched all these countless productions. But now you can go watch a different version of Romeo and Juliet.
Right. Yeah. And it'll be the same thing. It'll be the same story, but how those characters connect with you and how they connect with each other, it'll be a different experience. And how the director has visually placed those performers on the stage will be visually different and inspiring. And so you can go see a different show. You could go see last year Something Rotten was done both by Storybook Theater, and then a month and a half later it was put up by Front Row Center Players. And there are many people that went and saw both productions, and when they left, they said it was like I saw an entirely different show. Storybook Theater did very much the Broadway version of Something Rotten. It was very direct into that, and if you'd saw both of them, you would have been able to find nuance in the performances, but much of the actual structure of it and the staging of it was the same. But Front Row Center Players said, okay, Storybook is doing this Broadway version of it. We need to throw that out and start finding our own different pieces to it and different ways and motivations and inspirations for it. And as a result, put together something completely different. And that show went on to receive a bunch of community theater awards in Calgary. Because they found ways to make it personal for them, which made it inspiring to the performers and to the production team, and then brought together this really whole cloth created production that was different from the storybook version of the show, because it was still the same show at the end of the day. I wouldn't want to say one was better than the other. Mm-hmm. They're just different from each other.
Yeah. Do you as a performer ever find it hard to make a character your own? I've spoken with a few past guests on here who took on some iconic roles. You're so influenced, right? Like, these characters, but how easy is it for you to make this character your own?
I'm fortunate in that I've played a lot of ensemble characters historically. Like most of my early experience in theater in Calgary has been as a background actor in a large musical. I'm just one of the tenors. I just get to be a sailor in a show. But I've never really felt that when I find a character that I'm not being derivative to somebody else, because I just try to internalize the character to my own story and my own perspective. And so when I read the lines and find the character, I find myself in the emotion in that. And so that I can just present a more unified me on stage, who you would believe is, the captain of the HMS Pinafore. And if I'm the captain of the HMS Pinafore and these are the things I've gone through, I find that my performance is rooted in that personal quality, as opposed to trying to be derivative of something else.
So let me ask you, doing this podcast, being in the entertainment field, I've got a lot of friends. I see a lot of posts. I get to go to a lot of things. I see a lot of stuff. There's a lot of great live events here in this city. Live theater, live music, live comedy, live drag shows,
live improv.
There's everything. But do you think the city as a whole can do a lot more to help promote this great community?
Yeah, I think that they could. I struggle to figure out what that is. Some of the things that we at Calgary Acts are trying to do is upgrade the website that we're working on right now so that more of the events can be listed and posted there. I feel that there isn't enough evangelizing of community theater as a whole. People, when they're involved in a show, want to evangelize that show. When you were in Simply Theater's production of Plaza Suite, you wanted to evangelize Plaza Suite.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of that already. But then Simply Theater, from a larger perspective, Fady and Jim and Dale, those guys were out there. They were evangelizing for Simply Theater. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't carry over to other production companies and other shows. So one of my mandates, the Calgary Acts, is to just get more of those conversations happening between the community theater companies to talk about shows that they're willing and looking at putting up and when they're putting those shows up, so that we don't end up with 5 shows happening over a 3-week period, making it hard for an audience member who may be interested in seeing a show a week or a show 40 times a year. That's a lot of shows, but that's a great thing to get to go do on a Friday night. And it's much better than going to the theater or sitting at home watching Netflix. When a live show's happening, it's not an expensive endeavor for 2 people to go out and catch a show. A family of 4, on the other hand, it's a bit more prohibitive, but a lot of companies are working on that. So getting as a mandate to get all of the different community theater companies to talking about their shows together and talking about when they're doing their shows and where they're doing those shows and having that conversation has been something I've been working on. But again, remember, these companies, like Simply Theater, who's no longer around anymore. So if a company like Morpheus, they're busy doing Morpheus things.
Mm-hmm.
They have a full slate of shows for an entire year, plus their normal working jobs that they have to do to try to find time to schedule conversations to happen with other groups, just to tell them what's going on and what they're doing and what they're thinking about is a lot of work. And it's also historically been rather closed-lipped. They don't want to share that they're thinking about putting up this show in case another company ends up doing it before them or says, "Oh, that's a great show. I'm going to have that idea," and then goes and does it themselves. We see that a lot in the movie industry,
Right.
when you get A Bug's Life and Ants in the same
Yeah. Deep Impact, Armageddon.
right? Yeah. So it's my goal has been over the last few years to get those groups together and talking more, and we're slowly getting there. Could the city be more involved? Absolutely. But they do have an arts team and they do have an arts group, and we have to recognize that that team is also supporting professional theater in Calgary, which is suffering a massive loss due to the rise of televised theater and film theater here, television and film work here in Calgary. And a lot of the stage managers and production people and props masters that were doing live theater have left. They've gone to the film industry because during COVID, there was no live theater, but there was film.
Yeah.
And so they were able to go and find that. And that industry has been really built and developed. And it's a strong thing in Calgary now. And we're losing people to it regularly. That's okay. There's new people coming up every day, and there's new people falling into the woodwork every day, like yourself and myself. We're like, oh, hey, theater, sure, I'll go do something like that.
Yeah.
So that's fine. But the one thing that I would tell a person who is interested in communicating with the city itself, or who is with the city, is to say, where are our theater spaces? Where are our social gathering places in this city? Because they are few and far between.
Yeah.
And we just spent billions and billions of dollars on a new sports entertainment complex, which is fine. And I want that there. And I think that that is an empowering and inspiring thing for the youth of our generation to go out and achieve and strive to become a professional sports star. But where is that for theater? Because if we don't have it for the arts, we are encouraging and building the body. Where is that development for the mind and the soul that comes from the arts? And we need that in Calgary. And we do not have the theater spaces to do that are, built and designed and developed and city managed. They are literally being done by builders. Cardell Homes and whatnot are building theaters because they realize that they see the need for these social groups and these social spaces, but they're not being built. Even community halls are no longer being included in designs for new communities in Calgary. And it has been at least 15 years since I've seen a new community hall be designed and built into a new community in Calgary. And why is that happening? Where are these communal spaces that allow for people to share and grow?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like hosting some of the events and bigger events I've planned, or like charity events, there's a lot less halls for me to choose from. But that's one of the reasons why I started choosing like breweries and distilleries, because they've got like the space for something like a silent auction and a live music or something. Because the halls it used to be, like growing up, that was where people would go all the time. Mm-hmm. Weddings were happening there all the time. 50th birthday parties were happening. Just carnivals, open houses. They were all happening there. Now that doesn't happen.
Yeah, communal science fairs. There was all of these different things that used to happen in community halls that have died out as these community halls. When they were built, they were never built to have a legacy fund to manage and maintain the building. So when the building reached a threshold point where the roof needed to be replaced, or some dramatic or traumatic event happened to the building, there was no funds to repair it. And as a result, it was not viable for the public to enter. And as a result, it was condemned and torn down, and the land leveled and sold.
Yeah.
And that's terrible.
One of the things I wanted to was really wanting to talk to you about in this conversation is, you mentioned your podcast on staging and
Mhm.
bringing people on to talk about it, different shows. But what I wanted to chat with you about is because I feel like there's probably somebody listening to this podcast right now and going, "Oh, I do love theater, but like I'd love to get involved, but I I don't act. I don't like acting. I'm not a fan of it." But there's so many jobs, as we mentioned before. It's social media, marketing, costumes. Maybe if you love shopping, like you love going to thrift shops, all that stuff. Like, talk to those people who are like, I want to get involved, but I don't want to act.
Yeah, so if you don't want to act, but you want to be involved in the production of a show, um, I would recommend getting on board as an assistant stage manager. You'll be backstage over the course of the run of the show. You'll be there to help pull curtains and organize props and tell actors when to get on stage because they got too busy chatting in the green room and forgot to
Never
organize the
happens.
show.
What are you talking about? That never happens.
and and you're there to be told what to do and then do that particular job, and it's a great entry level way to see the bigger picture of theater itself. But there's also great opportunities during the run of a show as well to be an usher, to come out and help the company sell tickets, and to be there to do and coordinate and sell the 50/50 and whatnot. So there's lots of those opportunities as well. And then just connecting with the company too, to say, hey, I'm interested in community theater and these are kind of my skills. Then you may fit into another thing where they're like, we're going to be painting scenery on this day. We'd love to have you come and help with that. Or we're going to be set building in our rehearsal space for some flats that'll need to be put up down the road. Because one of the things about community theater is over the course of life of a show, things are happening slowly in the background leading up to that load in day at the theater where suddenly everything pitches into high gear. And yeah, come out and be part of the entire process and see where things fit for you, because I didn't start out thinking I was going to wanted to get into sound design and sound development. I fell into podcasting while I was doing community theater, and I realized I really love creating live sound. I really love creating sound effects and putting music behind things and developing sound for a show. So as a podcaster yourself, you may be well acquainted and well versed with creating the right sound effects and whatnot, and then learning what it takes and how those have to be formatted to be put in front of a show itself and be part of that full experience that adding sound effects to a show can be.
Yeah, I always say to people, there's something that you would be good at that you may not realize, a calling that you didn't think twice about. I mean, I never thought I would be this like trivia event host, like hosting trivia and bingo nights, but I love chatting with people. I loved entertaining people and I did love performing, and now I get to do it several nights a week just as my own kind of persona, which I think is super fun. So yeah, I don't know, people, if you're listening and you're like, oh, I do like doing that, just reach out to these theater companies and see like how you can help out, and you never know what will come from it.
Absolutely. And you can get in touch with the entirety of community theater in Calgary by going on Facebook and checking out Calgary Acts ACTS. That is the umbrella organization by which all of the different community theater companies in Calgary are talking to community theater and announcing their shows and calling out their auditions. We don't like the fact that Facebook gets to control and coordinate all of our social element of things. There just doesn't seem to be something else that has come about that allows us to do that. There isn't a digital community hall that's not like Facebook that we have found that we can corral the masses, because it has some, over 5,000 members uh, in Calgary Acts on Facebook. And that comes with a certain degree of value because we can connect with people and we can reach the entire wide mass of people. You can also join the mailing list at calgary-axe.com. If you click to join the mailing list there, then anytime a company sends something to the mailing list, it gets forwarded on to the entirety of our mail list group. And so then they're notified of upcoming auditions and requests for directors and requests for production team. And like I said before, with all of the people in professional theater moving to live film product, like film related stuff, we lost then a lot of production people who were doing community theater stepped up and were given opportunities within the professional theater element in Calgary. And so for the last 2 years, we've had a real dearth of production team opportunities, and it's been reliant on several people to be the sound designer or be the stage manager for a large number of shows. We are still looking for more people who are interested in lighting, and lighting design is a really unique and interesting and constantly evolving field that I would recommend anyone who has a passing interest in hanging a light bulb think about taking a course at SAIT in, or coming and doing some junior level following for a show.
Yeah, so many options. And again, that's the beauty of community theater, is that there's such wonderful, great productions that happen, and you can use it as a stepping stone if you're looking to go just further, or if you just want to do this as this is what brings you joy while you have this full-time job and family and partner. Like it's whatever you want to do with it, you can.
Yeah.
We're just over halfway through the year, I guess. Wow. Oh my goodness, where's the time going?
We're closer to 2050 now than we were 2000.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy. Okay, wow. Whew, give me a moment now. So, can you tell us anything, as we're going into end of summer, fall, winter? Can you give us anything about some of the productions coming up, or anything you want people to know as we're getting into, especially as we wind down the hot season and people want to be outside? People are going to be looking for those nice evenings out in the fall.
So what's great about community theater is it does not happen during the summer.
Yeah.
July and August are quiet periods typically for community theater because it's just too hot. Most theaters that we would have use of for community theater are not air conditioned. And so getting in there at 7 p.m. after a sweltering day and sitting in a theater with 200 to 300 other people right side next to you, and then watching actors perform under hot lights is not a recipe for a good time. So the community theater season doesn't start until that first couple weeks of September. And Front Row Center Players is kicking off at the Pump House, Rock of Ages, opening the 12th of September. And that pretty much kicks off the whole season this year. We have already, that I'm aware of, 34 shows that are already set in stone, posters made, dates locked, theaters selected. They paid for the rights of the show, they've made the poster, and they've got their theater. That show's happening.
Wow.
So there's 35 of those already on the books, and I'm imagining as well there will be at least 8 to 10 more that I'm just not immediately aware of. Some companies like to keep things a little more under wraps until the actual official season starts. But for the CAT Awards themselves, there's usually a list of all the shows that are going to be put on for the next season. This past year we had 41, and the year before that was 45. I don't see it being too different from those numbers for next year. Going into the fall, as a result, the theater season then basically runs from September through the end of June. Not as many shows in June, but you're going to find a massive surge of shows that'll happen in early to mid-October. Probably 8 shows will be happening over those 3 weeks.
Wow.
We try to find an opportunity to see. There'll then be this period between end of November and the first 2 weeks of December that there'll be another 7 shows to go and see. And then it'll be a really nice medley of shows, January, February, March. Oftentimes, those are when a company is going to take a risk on a show. They're going to do a production like Little Women. Morpheus Theater is doing Little Women in January, at the end of January. That is not a show that has typically been done. Should have a great turnout, but it is not a normal sort of live theater production. So I'm very interested in seeing what that looks like as well. Small Time Theater, which is another one full of where a bunch of kids are their main performers. That production happens in April. It's Newsies Junior, which I think will be a great one to see. And so as we get closer and closer The big tentpole final show of the season usually then happens that first week of May through May to June. That's when the company, if they are going to spend money on a show, that's when they spend the money. If they are going to go all out with a big cast, that's when they do that. If they are going to build a dramatic, magnificent mansion of a set, that's when that happens. And so you will see shows like this past year's Heathers or this past year's Sweeney Todd from Front Row Center Players. Those were their big tentpole productions for Untold Stories and for Front Row. For this coming year, Front Row Center Players, for their final show of the season, are doing Cabaret. Morpheus Theatre is doing Patience, which is a little done Gilbert and Sullivan production. And Swamp Donkey is doing 9 to 5 in Bragg Creek. Those are the top ones that I know of off the top of my head. There are a few others that are being done. Workshop Theatre's doing Emma in May. Lots of theater to see, and a variety of theater across the board, from murder mysteries to comedies to musical comedies to dramatic, impactful work itself.
Yeah, lots of things. Like you mentioned, we mentioned it earlier. No matter what type of night out you're looking for, if you're looking for your friend's night out, date night, family night, whatever it may be, there's lots of options for you. I know it's very early to suggest this, but my mind's always thinking of gifts. But if you honestly don't know what to get your partner or your friend for Christmas, just like a lot of the tickets are not that far in advance, just make them a little gift card that says this is a night out for this play.
Yeah.
And look to see what plays coming out. If you know your partner loves this movie or this book or this play, just get them a certificate that's like, yeah, we're going to this opening night type thing, and have a whole night, go for dinner at a local restaurant and then go see the show. Just ideas, people.
It's very clear. We do not need more plastic in our lives.
Yeah.
So we don't need more things cluttering up our homes. We have got those things. A gift like a season's pass to Front Row Center Players or Morpheus or one of the other production companies, or even just a couple of tickets to a couple of shows from the list of companies. Imagine Theater does just generally one show a year in April, and they've been going through the C.S. Lewis Chronicles of Narnia. They've already done The Magician's Nephew and The Horse and His Boy. I don't know what they're planning on doing next year. It's always an arranged work that they've created themselves. It's beautiful sets and costumes. Set at the Lantern Church in Inglewood, which is a beautiful venue to get to go to see a theatrical production in. Get them tickets to that, because an experience will live inside of you and will change you and give you opportunity for thought in a way that, a brand new wooden maple cutting board with an epoxy insert isn't going to.
I mean,
that's a great gift too.
I mean, I discuss this with friends and family all the time. Like, we're adults. When we see something we want, we buy it. Like, so I don't need anything. It's nice when somebody sees a little knickknack that makes me, they thought of me. The amount of random dinosaur things I get, like, it's nice. But yeah, any really big thing, like, I don't make a Christmas list anymore because I've bought everything I need. So.
Yeah. The thing we need now is experiences.
Yeah.
Because we're so sequestered in our home. We're surrounded by the things we bought, and we need to continue to add value and meaning to those things by interacting with them. And that's why Netflix hooks you and draws you in. That's why YouTube sucks you down the hole.
Yeah.
Is you're continuing to invest in value creation for that. Getting your friend a pair of tickets to a show. You're like, I don't know anything about it, but let's go have an adventure. Let's go have an experience, is something that you can take home with you that you don't have to put on a shelf later.
Yeah. All right. Well, as we start to wind down here, I always like to ask my guest a very random question here, but it's very specific. Tell me something awesome. I feel like the world needs to know some more awesome things. So tell me something that's awesome. It can be absolutely anything, food, an event, whatever it may be.
Well, I'm a podcaster and I love podcasting. Something awesome I could tell you about would be my wife's podcast called What the Force. It is a Star Wars fandom podcast where she talks about the meta myths of Star Wars from a Star Wars perspective. She talks about things from feminine gaze as well as what are the underlying motifs and how Star Wars changes people and how people change Star Wars. It's very, very popular, has hundreds of thousands of views and listens every single year. And she's been invited to Star Wars Celebration to speak on panels for the last 3 or 4 Star Wars Celebration events. It just celebrated 7 years of podcasting back in February, and she's over 350 episodes to sink your teeth into. I think What the Force is something awesome that not enough people get to hear about. It's a Canadian Podcast Awards nominated production and something special to her heart.
Well, that is pretty awesome. What the Force. Check that out, everybody. That's a fun one. And you're looking for stuff to binge. There you go. You got 350 episodes you can listen to.
Exactly. Yeah, we are a big podcasting family here. Ever since I started buying microphones, we realized, oh, you know what? We've got to create added value to them. So let's have people over. Let's make on staging. Yeah. Let's make Tavern Tales a Dungeons and Dragons podcast, which is 8 years old as well. And my wife's like, I'm going to make my own podcast because I'm tired of talking to you about Star Wars. And I said, that's great. I'm tired of listening to it.
There you go. Well, Kyle, this was so much fun chatting with you. Thank you for giving me your insights to this wonderful community theater society we have here. And I encourage everybody listening to go check out some shows. You know, if you're looking, especially as we get to the fall and winter there, everyone's always like, I don't want to leave my house. You just leave and you can go do something indoors and you're entertained for 90 minutes. Go ahead.
Not only that, but you get the ride home. So part of on staging is like that ride home where you talk about the show. Like if you listen to on staging on the way to the show, on the way home, you can talk about the show itself. You're like, did the director achieve that feeling that I wanted to have? And when that person did that thing, did I see it? And there's so many wonderful things that come of the conversation you get to have after the show that you don't get anywhere else. It's like having a book, the immediacy of a book club. Where instead of having to spend a month and a half reading a book you didn't know if you were going to like it all, and then you get to chat with it over friends and coffee for a couple of hours, this is all winnowed down to a very tightened experience for you. You get to go and enjoy something or not, and at least experience it, and then discuss it afterwards. How do you think it worked? What went wrong? What would you have done differently? How did those actors make you feel? Those are great questions and things you get to chat about on the way home, which you're not going to get if you're watching Netflix because it's just going to automatically go to the next episode.
It's true. Well, valid point. See, you hit it. I think we sold it. I hope we did anyways. So thank you, Kyle, for, again, being here today. It was such a pleasure chatting with you. And I look forward to chatting with you in the future with some more production stuff.
That'd be great. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you. Thank you, Kyle, for being here today. It was such a joy to chat with you. Make sure to follow along with Calgary Acts. As he mentioned, you can check them out on Facebook. You can go to their website. Lots of ways to keep in touch. Whether you want to go watch the shows or get involved, there's ways that you can do that. So thank you so much once again, Kyle. And of course, follow me on social media at PTW Craig, Passing Time with Craig, for all the fun ways to pass the time. Otherwise, we'll chat soon. Bye.